Well, hey Crosskart fans, today we are getting back to work on the two-seater. I've got the stock tank fitted in place about where I want it, so the next step's going to be mounting that. As soon as this is mounted, we can start doing the harness, then we can hear this thing sing its song. So today we are going to do the harness bar, which is going to act as the forward support, but we are going to do something slick. We're going to make the harness bar removable. That way we can run it over the top of the engine with super tight clearances. So if we need to pull the motor or do any kind of maintenance, we can just remove the harness bar, pull the motor or whatever we need to, and then put it back in. It also could save us from having to remove the seats for some things. So let's get to work on that. We'll bend, notch, and weld, and get one step closer to a two-seater. All right, so we've referenced the outside of the bend, and we've got our blocks in place at the bending locations. It's a matter of just shoving it in the machine, putting our pin in. Now, you guys might be seeing that DeWalt air compressor. I had my old air compressor for nearly 20 years, and it was not the correct compressor for this job. So I did upgrade my compressor, but that's not a $3,000 compressor. That was a $500 compressor. There was a $100 off sale, and that's a 110. It's not a 220 compressor. It just plugs into an outlet. It does require a 30 amp breaker on it, but man, that thing has upped my bender game a ton. It bends faster. I don't have to stop and let the 30-gallon tank recharge. I can bend a full 180 degrees if I need to without taking a break. So yeah, and it's good for other stuff in my shop too. I'm still a garage guy. I still look for affordable things. I'm not going to get crazy on you guys. Grab our bend sheet. Both these are 32 degrees. So grab this, we go to 32 degrees. All right, so we're at 31.75. I'll just nudge it in here. All right, there's 32.2. Now, we're shooting for 32.5. Now I'm going to talk about spring angle. This is how I've started doing my spring angles. I go to the bend angle, and then I'll release the pressure die until it loosens. So right there, the pressure die is loose. So if we pull this out of the machine, this would be bent to 29.24 degrees. So that's our spring angle, essentially. 32 degrees minus 29.23. which is 2.8 degrees. So 32 plus 2.8 degrees is 34.8. So all we have to do is bend this to 34.8, and we should have a good piece. All right, we overshot it by 0.2, but we'll see how we came up. So I'm gonna open the valve until the pressure die is loose. And I like to stop it right at where I want my bend to be to see if it's loose, and it's loose. Oh, just lost it. Are you kidding me? Oh, there it is. It lost the 0. Doggone it. You gotta be kidding me. So you saw it was 32 degrees and the pressure die was loose. I don't know why this turned off. Stupid. Probably because I'm jabbering at you guys instead of working. So now we can pull this piece out, and that bend's gonna be at 32 degrees. Now, if you want to, but you don't have to at all, you can verify your bend. So we'll reference, or 0, same thing. Then we'll put it up here, and we will see the exact bend that we have. All right, so a quick reminder on notching. I have the cut wrapper in place, and you see I've written 35 degrees on it. That's because this notch is done at 35 degrees. Now, on my notcher, the 0 line is 90 degrees because technically this is a 90-degree cut, but we need to go 35 degrees. So we're not going to go to 35 degrees on the dial because that's not 35 degrees off of 90. That's 35 degrees off of 0. So here's a quick and easy way to do it. Go 90 and then just count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, which turns out to be 55 degrees if you like math that way instead. We tighten up our clamps because our degree is set. And then we'll get this lined up. We want it nice and level before we cut. Looks like that is going to cut it beautifully. There we go. And we just run our saw through it. All right, so we got this big honking motor in here, and we've got one harness attachment bar. Now, this bar is made specifically so that you have wiggle room. This isn't a Lego piece like I've told you before. This is a fabrication. So, with a normal engine in here, without an air box, without the extra height of it, it would sit above the cylinder head. But in this scenario, everything is right where this bar goes. But we're not going to let that stop us. Now, we don't really want to block our intake ducts here. And I was going to use this bar to mount my gas tank because it's at a similar height. So I've already notched this piece. I was actually hoping it would fit right in this little gap. But that's where the spark plugs go. It's where the air box is. I don't really want it there. As far as seat clearance goes, I've got plenty of room. This can be re-notched. The angle of this bar coming inwards means that you can shorten this via your notcher. But you're going to have to line up notches. It's not that hard. It only takes a second, but work your way towards it. Don't just think you have it perfect. Notch it and go. Notch it a little long. That way you've got some working room. What we can do is we can come up. We can come up on this bar. But I'm not going to do that either because there's something different you can do with this bar. All right? The ideal place, in my opinion, for the harness bar is just in front of this cylinder head. Just like right here. So I'm actually going to take this bar. I'm going to invert it. There we go. I like that pretty well. And as you can see, we've got plenty of meat to come off of here. Our air box is not obstructed, and it's actually above the firewall, which I like a lot because it's going to make it easier to run intakes if we want to do that. There is a piece, and I actually notched it on the wrong end. I notched the start at the end and the end at the start. So this is going to be backwards, but this is your build. You can do it however you want to. And there we go. We've got a strong triangulated harness bar, a good template or a good canvas for our firewall. The harnesses are going to be nice and strong. This is all going to stiffen up the chassis, so it's not going to want to twist, and it's going to hold the floor in better too. So this is that piece. I notched it backwards, so it would normally go the other way, but it didn't make that much of a difference to me. And no matter the height of this will fit on that center bar no matter the angle because your variation isn't going to be super incredible. So now it's just a matter of leveling this, figuring out where to notch each side, and then getting it tacked in. This is going really easily. All right, so here's my setup right before I mark it for notching. I've got a 2x4, is good spacing from the engine. I've got these ready to be marked. I just used the angle on that to get it level. 0.21 degrees to the right and 0.22 degrees to the right. So all I gotta do is mark it, re-notch it for this tube here where it sits, and it's just gonna rotate into place. There shouldn't be too much variation. Center it, tack it, and then tack our lower bar in. Center it, obviously. We'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, so re-notching tube isn't as cosmic as you think. Finding a correct bend angle, difficult. Re-notching, easy. We're basically just realigning this tube to match this angle and this tube, right? So the hardest thing to get on this is orientation. So luckily we have it lined up pretty well where we can just put a tube in line and we can literally just draw around it, okay? Now you want to line it up going exactly forward to back, and like I said, leave it a little long so that you got something to work with, okay? So you can mark the inside most part of it, but what you'll lose orientation on is vertical versus lateral. Your instinct is going to be to cut it this way. I know in this picture it doesn't look like it, but as soon as you get this off, you're going to want to do it. So put a dot in the center of your tube, all right? And we're going to do the same thing underneath. So we've got a pretty good picture here. All right, so here we are at the notcher, and I did take a protractor and measure it. It's a 10-degree angle. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to go 5 and 10 degrees off of 90. I'm going to lock this in. All right, now, to put this in here, we can see all the references we made. So you can see I've got my dot to know which side, I've got my end limit, and I wrote the word long. So whenever there's an angle, there's going to be a long side and a short side. Just turns out the upper side was the long side. So that means we have to come in from an angle this way so that the top stays long, bottom gets short. The more references you have, the easier this is going to be. Lock it in, and then just go to town. Now, you can take this over and you can test fit it, because there's enough material on here that if we did not do this right, we could still salvage this part. All right, this is our bar, and it's tacked in place, and you can see that it would work really, really well with the harness bar, with the clearance there, clearance from the motor. Everything looks great. With this bar there, I can't get any more tilt out of this seat. If the bar were up 2 inches and back 2 inches, originally where I had it, it would give me a lot more options with the seat if I want to revisit the tilt and adjust driver fit up. So I'm going to knock this loose. I'm going to notch it a little deeper and raise it up and back. It's not going to take long. There we go. That's exactly where I want it. I just trimmed one side. I picked the longer side of the tube because I didn't have it perfectly centered. And I took 2 cuts at it, 1/4 inch at a time. So I took essentially 1/2 inch off. And now it's sitting right in that pocket where I wanted it. It's even better than I wanted it, to be honest. That is perfect placement. All right, you guys ready to have some fun? Now, we possibly could get this engine out with this bar in, but most likely not. We could be able to bring it out the side, but this was always planned because I thought I was going to run this bar over the valve cover, but it worked out really well this way, so I'm going with it. But I'm still going to make this removable. Now, the same pieces we used for the engine mount, I ordered these at the same time. This is for 1.5 inches, and it looks like we need 1.5 inches of space to put this in. So we're going to cut 1.5 inches out of here, 1.5 inches out of the other side, and 1.5 inches out of the bottom to make this whole assembly removable and bolt in so that we can get the engine out. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so something I learned first off, cut halfway through first with your angle grinder or disc, and then cut the rest of the way through with a hacksaw. It's easy. Never underestimate hand tools. Number 2, we've got our plugs in place. Now, notice how I have these oriented. This will pull that way when released. These are going to pull that way when released, or slide, whatever you want to call it. You can actually weld this together even with these roll bar connectors. So pay attention to orientation as always. Now, this is going to be difficult to do by myself. I've trimmed everything up, and there's just a natural bit of play in there because there's no way we can get this perfect tolerances. All right, so now let's test it. All right, here we go. Oh, yes. Look at that. Now, final test. Will it go back in? This is extremely cool. All right, so now that the harness bar is in, we have a forward mount available for our gas tank. So let's turn our attention back to the gas tank. All right, so the weight of this gas tank is probably pushing down on our air box, and it could be screwing up our boots. So I'm just gonna take a 2x4 and gap the air box to take the pressure off of where it connects to the manifold, throttle bodies, carburetors. And then from there, we can lift the tank just a little bit as well to get a little bit of separation from the tank and the air box. Now, the reason I want to do that is to reduce vibration. We have solid mounts on here, and if we vibrate this gas tank, we are going to foam our fuel, and it's not going to work as well. Same reason I'm gapping it from the frame. All right, it's been a minute since I shot a long how-to video and my phone died, but I'll tell you what I did. It's not too hard. I took the original bracket. I got some, 3" by 1/8" thick, because this is only an 1/8" thick. Put it on there. I traced the circles. I punched it. Drilled some holes, drilled a lightweight hole, and then bent up a little bracket. And that bracket looks like this. You can see I used the original rubber grommet, so the vibration is completely isolated. I still am maintaining my spacing there and up here as well. I tacked it in place, and it's going to work fantastically. I put a little lightning hole in the middle just to make it look a little cooler. Onto the front. All right, so right now the front is being suspended by an adjustable bungee cord to get it off of the air box. I'm basically just going to bend this tab down and make a big U bracket. I might hook my coils up inside of there, a little protection there for the spark plug wires. I've learned from past builds that this is a neat area for other things to mount. Should be easy. Well, that's it for this one. I had 2 goals today. Put in the harness support bar and mount the fuel tank. Those 2 things are done. So, success. I have here in my passenger seat the wiring harness, and we'll tackle that next because I want to hear this bad boy sing. So please keep tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.